Hi guys, this is David with Btekt and welcome to my full photography guide of the Huawei P30 Pro. In my last video, I briefly compared the triple camera system on the Galaxy S10 with the P30 Pro, and it really was my first time using the P30 Pro's camera, so I just really wanted to share my experiences with you. But now that I've had a little bit more time with this thing, I can tell you that it's even more impressive than I first thought. The new 40 megapixel super spectrum sensor really is very impressive when it comes to its low light sensitivity. It's so good, it's almost like you really don't even need the night mode. Although saying that, night mode has been improved, and I'll get onto that in just a bit. But first I want to say a big thank you to Direct Mobiles. They have over 24 years of award-winning customer service, and it's just a great place to go if you're after a new phone. You're bound to find a great deal there. Check in the video description below for a link or search directmobiles.co.uk. The new 40 megapixel super spectrum sensor is an amazing 40% more sensitive to light than the previous high-res sensor in the P20 Pro. One way to easily demonstrate how much more sensitive this sensor really is just to switch between the lenses. The other two sensors do not have the same low light capabilities, but the super spectrum sensor is able to capture sharp and well saturated images in almost no light at all. It has a maximum ISO setting of 409,600, and it seems to be able to reach those upper limits while still keeping the noise relatively minimum. This picture here is taken in my kitchen at night with the lights off. I couldn't see much in the room at all, but the camera has got a fairly clean shot. This is not a long exposure either. It didn't seem to take any longer to snap than a normal photo. The same thing here again. It's the middle of the night and with my eyes I cannot see to the end of the garden. It really is really impressive what Huawei have done here when it comes to low light. But as you know, there's lots more to this feature packed camera. So let's open up the camera app and have a look through. So along the bottom of the camera app, you'll find the primary shooting modes, which I'll go over in a minute. Across the top, from left to right, we have High Vision, where you find the barcodes and QR code scanner, as well as the shopping and identify apps, which allow you to search the internet for objects that the camera can see and come back with descriptions and prices in some cases, most of the time. Next to that is the flash toggle, which can be kept always on, which is handy for shooting video, and next to that is the AI switch. So far, with my time in using the P30 Pro, I've seen no reason to turn off the AI. In fact, it is set off by default. I recommend switching it on. It's so much improved over the P20 Pro, never really oversaturating or over sharpening. Plus it seems to be faster to recognize what kind of scene you're looking at. Point it at a person and it will quickly switch to its portrait mode. And I've got to say, the portrait shots that the P30 Pro is delivering thanks to its new time of flight sensor are stunning. Still at the top you'll find the color settings, giving you choices between standard, vivid and smooth. So far I've been happy with the colours that the P30 Pro has been producing, so I've seen no reason to switch it from standard. And finally at the top you'll find the settings cog. Here you can change the resolution from its default 10 megapixel setting up to 40 megapixels. Shooting at 40 megapixels is really only advised if you intend on cropping in quite heavily on the image in post. As many of you know, the best pictures with the Huawei Leica cameras are taken at 10 megapixels, using the data from the 40 megapixel sensor as well as the other two cameras to give you a very detailed shot. When shooting at 40 megapixels, you are just using the one sensor, so you can't use HDR and you can't switch lenses or zoom. Other options under the settings are the locations tag, which is pretty self-explanatory, add watermark, which only allows you to add the Leica quad camera watermark to your images at the moment at least. That may change with updates. Assertive Grid adds guidelines to your viewfinder to help you compose your image according to the rule of thirds. Mirror reflection is for the front camera only and is again pretty self-explanatory. I always think that I look weird if I have it on mirror, so I just keep it off. Mute will remove the volume for the camera sounds. It won't stop you from recording audio when shooting video. It just stops the shutter sounds and the recording beeps. Timer delays the picture being taken. Useful if you have it on a tripod and you want to run around and be in the group shot. It can be delayed by 2, 5 or 10 seconds. Another new addition to the P series is the 32 megapixel front facing camera, which I'm really pleased to say finally isn't terrible. Even the front camera on the Mate 20 Pro, which was released just last year, I didn't like. In fact, I haven't liked any of Huawei's front facing cameras at all. But finally, this one's okay. Seems to still have beauty effects on by default, but they're fairly well executed this time and don't make you look weird. Audio control allows you to control the camera using your voice, so you can take a picture when you say cheese or if you speak very loudly at the camera. Capture smiles is pretty similar I suppose, but you don't have to shout, you just smile and it will take the shot. And finally, Ultra Snapshot is a very quick way of taking a picture while the screen is off. Just double tap the volume key and it will immediately take a shot. On the lower part of the screen we have the main shooting modes. By default it will be set to photo. When you have it set to 10 megapixels, here you'll find the zoom button on the right hand side of the screen. If you set it to 1x, you will have the advantage of the high ISO performance of the new sensor. Tap it once and it will switch to its 5x periscope zoom, which gives you plenty of reach without losing any quality. Tap it again and it switches to its 10x hybrid zoom, which needs a little bit of a steady hand, but the AI does a really good job, and finally when it does achieve focus, it will lock into place and clear up the image. Tap once more and it will switch to its ultra wide angle lens. To go to its 50x zoom, from here tap and slide up to 50 or go back down all the way to its wide angle. You can shoot photo and video at all these focal lengths. I would say the quality stays quite good up to about 30x. Beyond that and it gets pretty blocky and very hard to keep steady without using a tripod. To the left of photo mode is the portrait mode, and like I said before, this phone does a really good job of recognizing your subject and gives you a really nice graduated blur. The beauty effects, while fairly well done, are not exactly subtle. You do get the option to change the shape of the bokeh highlights, making them circular, heart-shaped, swirly or discs, as well as the usual photo booth, folding blinds and stage lighting effects, all executed with a little bit more accuracy than we're used to seeing thanks to this time of flight sensor. To the left of the portrait mode is the improved night mode. You can shoot in night mode at any focal length, though the process is completed faster if you use the 1x lens thanks to its improved light sensitivity. As ever, night mode produces incredible images from seemingly impossible situations. I love that you can shoot night mode at the 5x or even 10x magnification, although a steady hand is needed. To the far left is aperture mode, allowing you to shoot photos and video with a simulated maximum aperture of f/0.95, so really useful if you want to take portrait style shots of something that's non-human. Portrait mode will only really blur out the background if it recognizes a face, so I mostly only use this mode to get around that. But it's nice that you can shoot video in this mode too. The time of flight sensor definitely helping out with accuracy. As with past Huawei devices, this mode can struggle sometimes to perfectly track objects while shooting with a very wide aperture. Video mode is to the right of photo mode. Hit the settings cog while in video mode to get the video settings. Here you can change the resolution. By default it's set to 1080p 30 frames per second, and at this setting you get some of the best video stabilization available, almost like it was shot on a gimbal. Other settings here are the ability to shoot in full HD plus resolution at a 21:9 screen aspect, which should give your videos a movie-like feel. Still at 30 frames per second, it would have been really nice if you could have shot at this screen aspect at 24 frames per second, just to get more of a cinematic effect. Video stabilization is available at all resolutions and frame rates, including 4K. However, there is no 4K 60 frames per second, and video stabilization is not quite as good as it is when shooting at 1080p. Videos during the day are excellent, but when shooting in low light, I would suggest turning off the stabilizer and putting it on a tripod. We also have the option here to shoot in the H.265 video codec. This will save you quite a lot of space as it will give you much smaller 4K video files, but compatibility with players and apps that you might want to upload your videos to could be limited. Beauty effects can be added to the video, including AI color, which we first saw in the Mate 20 Pro. Other effects are background blur, vintage, suspense and fresh. There's a pretty comprehensive Pro mode giving you all of the manual controls. Fastest shutter speed is 1/4000th of a second and the slowest is 30 seconds. Here you can manually select that huge ISO range, with the max being 409,600, although in Pro mode you lose control of all the other camera functions if you push the ISO beyond 6400. ISO 409,600 is pretty much night vision, but what's really amazing is that noise is fairly well controlled. Finally, along the bottom here is the More tab, and here you'll find some of the more specialist shooting modes, such as the super slow motion. You can shoot 120 frames per second at 1080p, 240 frames at 720p, and 960 frames per second just for short bursts at 720p. Also under the More tab here is Panorama, which is nice and easy to use. Monochrome, which lets you shoot black and white, but also lets you switch between some of the main shooting modes, such as Aperture mode, Portrait and Pro mode. AR Lens allows you to record a short message as some of these funny characters. No change here from previous Huawei devices. No change with the light painting mode either, which is a great mode for capturing things like silky water and star trails. You can get some really great shots with it. HDR is selectable here, however if you shoot with AI enabled, it will automatically apply HDR where it's needed. Time lapse is great for capturing a change in image over time. No real improvement here, and still delivers you a 720p file, but it can be used at all focal lengths. The moving picture switch has been moved from the main screen and is now underneath the More tab, which I think is a good thing because that's something I hardly ever use. Filter will give you the usual selection of Instagram-like filters and can be used for both photo and video. Stickers is just the usual selection of stickers you'll find in every Huawei phone. Document can recognize text and highlight it for you. Underwater is to only be used with Huawei's underwater housing, switching all the controls from the screen to the physical buttons. Super Macro will let you focus very close to an object, and you can get some incredible true macro shots with it. This is just a manual way of selecting it. Again, if AI is enabled, if you get really close to an object, it will automatically switch to macro mode. And finally, download lets you download the good food and the document settings. The P30 Pro is still a great smartphone camera. Its capabilities are still very impressive and it's just an enjoyable phone to use. And now the P30 has really taken all of that to another level. I love using this camera. The ability to zoom so far and keep a perfectly clean image is great, and the low light capabilities are really impressive. It's just so much fun to use that I can see this phone inspiring people to become more interested in photography. Video is much improved over both the P20 and the Mate 20 Pro, but they still haven't completely nailed that stabilization yet. At 1080p, it's really great, and in good conditions works really well. The stabilization is even pretty good at 4K, but as soon as the lights get low, we just get that jelly effect. It's nowhere near as bad as what it was on the Mate 20 Pro, but it's still there. Overall, the AI stabilization combined with the optical stabilization is extremely good, even allowing you to get sharp shots at 50 times magnification. Personally, I wouldn't bother using it past 30 times, but that's still an extremely long reach and very impressive, especially when you consider that this thing is a smartphone. The 3D sensor seems to work great, and it seems to be more refined than the one that we saw on the Honor View 20. You get much more convincing looking portrait shots than the depth sensing systems. And it's great that the AI can recognize a person so quickly and automatically switch to its portrait mode, which I've been really impressed with. It delivers really flattering images consistently, which for me is reason alone to keep the AI switched on. You can get very high quality images from macro all the way up to super telephoto. Low light sensitivity is really way ahead of everything else at the moment. And as long as you stick to the 1x lens, you get great low light sensitivity for video. For photography, the P30 Pro is definitely not a disappointment, following on perfectly from the P20 Pro. When it comes to the rest of the phone, it's not quite as well equipped. Look out for my full review where I go over the rest of that, and it should be up very soon. Okay, that's it from me. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. It's at Btekt, or you can add me on Snapchat, david.btekt. Thank you for watching, guys. My name's David, and this is Btekt.